Hi, it's David. Welcome to your lesson on rounding. I asked 3 of my friends an interesting question. I wonder who gave me the most sensible answer. Hi Wilma. I'm doing a survey. How long have you been growing your hair?
2 years, 11 months, 3 weeks, 6 days, 12 hours, 32 minutes and 14 seconds.
Is it what? Oh, Harry, how long have you been growing your hair? Hey man, about 3 years, dude. Alright. Thanks. Take it easy. Peace. Mimi, how long have you been growing your hair? Ask a silly question. So who gave the most sensible answer? That's right, it was Harry, the hairy hippie. But why was it the most sensible answer? Well, in maths, you don't have to be so exact about everything all of the time. Sometimes you have to be, but sometimes it's better just to approximate numbers, to round numbers, to make them simpler and easier to understand. For instance, Willie Gettit's trying to do his homework at the moment, and he's looking at cities around the world and looking at their populations, and he's discovered that Tokyo has the largest number of people of any city in the whole world, with 35,453,191, whereas the Vatican City has the smallest number of people of any city in the world, 859. But he's finding it really difficult to understand the numbers, and he needs your help. Can you round these numbers so that Willie Gettit can understand them? So have a look at these. There's easy, medium and hard like always. Pick one of those and I want you to try to round the number. So Harry the hairy hippie is going to come on and do some comedy dancing for you. Pause that at any moment, head off, have a go at solving the problem, and then when you're done, come back, hit play, and I'll give you some hints and tips. So hopefully you've had a really good go at solving the problem. Now let's show you some hints and tips which will really help you to understand how to round numbers. Here we go. So let's have a look at the brain teasers. I'm going to be doing the green brain teasers with the green pen. I'll do the solution to the blue brain teaser with the blue pen and the solution to the red brain teaser with the red pen, so you can skip straight to the solution that's relevant for you. So starting with the green one, Sam's class has 27 children, and we were asked if that number is closer to 20 or 30. A great resource to do this question is actually the bead string. So I'm going to get a bead string now, and we're going to have 30 beads, like so. And we're going to be looking at the numbers between 20 and 30, so I'm just going to put a little gap here. And the number of children in Sam's class is 27, so we're going to count 27 beads. So 10, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, and we'll put a break here. And you can clearly see that 27 is closer to 30 than it is to 20. So the answer is 30. We can also show this on a number line. If you can imagine, we've got the numbers 20 to 30 on this line. So we'll have 21, 22, 23, 24, 25 will be the number in the middle, 26, 27, 28, 29 and 30. Just to make it even simpler, I'll also write the numbers that we've missed out on the tops of the lines. And we can see that number 27 is here. It lies more than halfway between the numbers, closer to 30 than it is to 20. So when you are looking at 2-digit numbers and you're trying to see which multiple of 10 the number is closest to, look at the ones digit. If it's a 5 or more, it's going to be closer to the higher number, and if it's less than 5, it's going to be closer to the lower number. Now let's look at the blue question. The population of the Vatican City was 859 people. And we're asked to round that to the nearest 100. So when you round something to the nearest 100, what it's asking you is it nearer to 800 or is it nearer to 900? So it's the hundreds digit that will either change or stay the same. However, it's looking at the tens digit that is going to tell us whether to round up or down. When we're rounding to the hundreds, we only need to look at the column next to it, the tens. We don't need to worry about the ones. Let me show you what I mean on a number line. Let's imagine that number 800 is here and 900 is here. The number in the middle is 850. This number is 859, so it's more than halfway. 859 would be about here on our number line. It is closer to 900 than 800. So when we round this number, we would say 859 is approximately equal to 900. So when you see a symbol that looks like an equal sign, but the top line is a squiggle, it means it's approximately equal to. It's not exactly the same. So if you're trying to round numbers, a very useful technique is to draw a number line between your range, write the number in the middle, and then see if your number is more than halfway. Another way to look at rounding numbers is to simply look at the digit next to the digit that you're trying to round. So if I am trying to round the hundreds digit here, I look at the tens. If the tens are 5 or more, then the number rounds up because the number is going to be closer to the next number up. But if the digit in the column next to the one I'm rounding is less than 5, then I would need to round down. You're probably asking by this point, what if the number was 850? Which is exactly halfway. Do we round up or round down? Well, in mathematics, once we get halfway, we always round up. Because once you've got halfway, you have at least got halfway or further. To illustrate this in an extreme example, someone might have already rounded the number 850.00001 up to 850, just to make the number easy to say. So a number like 850 might have some kind of decimal answer afterwards that hasn't been mentioned. So just in case, we always round up. However, if the digit next to the hundreds was a 4, it would not matter how many extra decimal points we had, it would still never quite reach halfway. I'm going to be covering fractions and decimals in later lessons, so if you don't quite understand that, don't worry. For the moment, you just need to know that if it's exactly halfway, we round up. Let's look at the red problem. The population of Tokyo. 35,453,191. And we were asked to round to the nearest 100,000. So first of all, we need to find the 100,000s column. Well, here's our ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands. There's our hundreds of thousands. and then we're into our millions and tens of millions. So the column we are trying to round is this one. So what the question is really asking us is this number nearer to 35,400,000 or 35,500,000? It's always useful to solve rounding questions using a number line. So we're going to write our range. First of all, we write the lower answer that it could be. If we're rounding to the hundred thousands, we don't need to write any significant digits after the hundred thousands column. So everything else after the column that you're rounding will be expressed as zeros. On the other side of a number line, we're going to have what the upper range could be. 35,500,000. So if we're rounding this number to the nearest 100,000, then the answer is either going to be 35,400,000 or 35,500,000, because this number sits in between them. And because we're rounding to the hundred thousands column, we ignore the other columns. However, we can't ignore the columns that come in front of that hundred thousands because they are more significant. We can't ignore the fact that there are 35 million here. That's a very important part of the answer still. We need to still keep that in mind. Next, we're going to plot the number which is halfway on our number line. So what number is halfway between 35,400,000 and 35,500,000? Well, we're going to keep the 35 million. But look at it this way. What number is halfway between 400 and 500? That would be 450. So halfway between 35,400,000 and 35,500,000 is 35,450,000. Now we plot our number on the number line to see where it will lay. 35,453,191 is bigger than halfway because both these numbers have 35 million, they both have 400,000, they both have 50,000, but this has 3,000 more. So our number would sit here on the number line. 35,453,191. So when we're looking to round this number up or down, because it's more than halfway in our range, we need to round up. So this number rounded to the nearest 100,000 is 35,500,000. We use a symbol which looks like an equal sign but has a squiggle on top, and that means approximately equal to. These numbers are not exactly the same, it's approximately equal to this. And we round it because this number is easier to say and easier to understand than this one. So someone asks you what's the population of Tokyo, you can say it's approximately 35.5 million or 35,500,000, rather than having to say, oh, I think it's 35,450,191, which doesn't make a lot of sense. Sometimes you'll need to know the exact numbers for things, but quite often, to make maths convenient, we just need to know what they are approximately. There's another way of rounding this number without using the number line. If we were rounding this number to the nearest 100,000, then it's the 100,000s column that will either stay the same or change to the next number up. However, to round that number and decide whether it's going to stay as it is or round up, we just need to look at the next column. We can ignore everything else. If the next column is 5 or more, then we round this number up. If the next column is less than 5, then we round the number down. Because if this is 5 or more, then we've reached halfway and we're going up to the next multiple. So this number would round up and become 35,500,000. Remember, when you're rounding a number, you keep all of the significant digits up to the column you're rounding, and then you write everything else as a 0. Because we don't need to know about these smaller numbers when we're approximating things, but we do need to know the bigger ones. For instance, if you were asked what the population of Tokyo is, you could say it's about 35.5 million, or 35,500,000. You can't say, oh, it's about 500,000, because that's far too small. So when you're rounding, you cannot ignore the most significant digits, but you can ignore the least significant digits. You might be wondering at this stage as to why you round up if this number is a 5 rather than rounding down. Well, let me explain. If we're rounding this number and the digit in the next column has reached 5, then the number is at least halfway. It could be more than halfway. There might be some other digits that haven't been mentioned because this number could have already been round. So we know if this digit reaches a 5, it's at least halfway or higher, depending on whether there are other digits that haven't been mentioned. However, if this digit was a 4, it definitely has not reached halfway. Even if there are other digits that have not been mentioned, this number is never going to be halfway until this reaches 5. Remember that if you're rounding a number, you only have to look at the number next to the column that you're rounding. If we're rounding to the nearest million, we would look at this column. If we're rounding to the nearest 1,000, we would look at this column. But if ever you're stuck at rounding numbers, draw a number line with your range, find the number halfway, and see if your number is more than halfway or less than halfway. So now you've seen how to round numbers, as always, I'm going to give you a challenge of 3 sets of questions. And I want you to pick the ones which is relevant for you. Green are the easiest, red are the hardest. Don't try anything that's too easy because you just get bored. Don't try anything that's too hard because you get frustrated with yourself. Something that's just right, something that's going to challenge you, make you think that you're going to find enjoyable. Meanwhile, Mimi the mime artist is going to come and do some comedy mimes for you. Pause it at any moment, head off, answer the questions. When you're done, come back, hit play, and we'll look at the answers. So let's see how you got on. Here's the solutions. So let's see how you got on. I'll be answering the green questions with a green pen, the blue questions with a blue pen, and the red questions with a red pen, so you can fast forward to the section that you need. Let's look at the green questions first. We were asked if 6 was closer to 10 or 0. And for this, I would use a number bead. Here's 10 beads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we can see that 6 is more than halfway. 6 is closer to 10 than to 0. So 6 is approximately equal to 10. If you wanted to see that on a number line, put 0 on one side, 10 on the other. The number halfway between 0 and 10 is 5. Our other numbers would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you can see that 5 is halfway, 6 is more than halfway, so it's closer to 10 than 0. Number 2, we were asked if 16 was closer to 10 or 20. So we draw a number line, put 10 on one side, 20 on the other. Our halfway number is 15. Again, if you can't see that, you could put your other numbers in. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And 16 is here. So 16 is closer to 20 than it is to 10. Notice the similarity between that and the previous question. 16 is closer to 20 in the same way that 6 was closer to 10. Number 3. Is 26 closer to 20 or 30? We put 20 on one side, 30 on the other. Halfway between 20 and 30 is 25. You could always look at a bead string to check that if you're not sure. Okay. But there's 20, there's 30. And halfway between 20 and 30 is 25. 26 comes after 25 on a number line, so it is closer to 30. 26 is approximately equal to 30. Number 4, is 24 closer to 20 or 30? So it's the same number line as before, 20 on one side, 30 on the other. The halfway number is still 25. But this time, the number 24 is here. 24 is less than 25 because we've got 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. So 24 is closer to 20 than it is to 30. So 24 is approximately equal to 20. Number 5. What is the nearest multiple of 10 for the number 47? Now, to understand this, you have to understand multiples. So a multiple of 10 is something that is in the 10 times table. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and so on. You can always recognise a multiple of 10 because it ends in a 0. Our number is 47. What's the nearest multiple of 10? It's just like the other questions, it's just worded in a slightly different way to get you used to the vocabulary of multiples. But what it's still asking is it closer to 40 or is it closer to 50? Because both those numbers are multiples of 10. Halfway is 45 and 47 is after 45 but before 50. 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50. So 47 is closer to 50 than 40. So the nearest multiple of 10 to 47 is 50. Number 6. We had to round 7,605 to the nearest 1,000. So the thousands column is the column that's going to change. We look at the column next to it to see if that would round up or round down. 6 is more than halfway, so that's going to round up to 8. So 7,605 is approximately equal to 8,000. If we round to the nearest thousand. Remember, every digit after the digit we're rounding becomes a 0, because we're not interested in those digits because they're too small. If you're not quite sure what to do there, draw it on a number line and put your range. Is the number closest to 7,000 or 8,000? The number halfway is 7,500. If you think about that, we would count in hundreds. So 7,000, 7,100, 7,200, 7,300, 7,400, 7,500, 7,600, 7,700, 7,800, 7,900, 8,000. So it is closer to 8,000 than 7,000. We're going to round the same number, but this time we're going to round it to the nearest 100. So it's the hundreds column that will either stay the same or change. To find out whether it stays the same or changes, we look at the column next to it. That's a 0, which is less than halfway, so it doesn't change. So 7,605 is approximately equal to 7,600. Because we're rounding, we're not interested in the least significant digits, but we must keep the most significant digits. We must keep all of the digits on this side of the number we're rounding, but put the others on this side to 0. We can't forget about this 7,000, it's still a significant part of the number. So 7,605 is approximately equal to 7,600. Again, if you're still not sure, you can see it on a number line. 7,600 on one side, 7,700 on the other. Halfway number is 7,650. 7,605 is about here, which is much closer to 7,600 than it is to 7,700. Round 7,605 to the nearest 10. So now we're going to round the tens column. That will either stay as it is, or it will change. To decide whether it stays the same or changes, we look at the number next to it, which is a 5. And remember, when a number reaches 5 or more, we round up. So this number becomes 7,610. We keep all of the significant digits to the left of the digit we're rounding, because they're large numbers and important, but we put all of the digits to the right hand side of the number we're rounding to 0, because they're small numbers and they're least important. To see this on a number line, our range would be 7,600 or 7,610. Our halfway number is 7,605, which is actually the number we were rounding. It's exactly halfway. But remember, when something is exactly halfway or more, you round up, not down. This one is a really, really clever question, really designed to make you think. Don't worry if you couldn't get this, it's really hard, but it's brilliant for challenging your mathematical thinking and helping you develop as a mathematician. You don't have to get the right answer every time. What's important is that you challenge yourself to think and improve your mind. Let's have a look. A number is rounded to 8,000. What's the smallest number it could be? This is easier to show on a number line. We put 8,000 here and 7,000 here. if it's rounded up to 8,000, then it must have been a number that is more than halfway. Halfway between 7,000 and 8,000 is 7,500. That number, or any number greater than that, rounded up to the nearest thousand, will give you 8,000. So this is actually the answer. This is the smallest number that will round up to 8,000. If I take just one away from that and end up with 7,499, that's less than halfway, it will have to round down. And if I choose a number greater than this, 7,501, it still rounds up, but that number is bigger than this one. So 7,500 is the smallest whole number you can have that will round up to 8,000 if you're rounding to the nearest thousand. Let's look at the red solutions, starting with number 10. We were asked to round 67,505,932 to the nearest 10 million, this column here. So this is the column which will either stay the same or it will change. To decide whether it stays the same or changes, we have to look at the column next to it. 7 is more than halfway, so this number will round up. So 67,505,932 is approximately equal to 70 million. If you find that tricky to understand, then draw a number line. We write our range. We were either going to round to 60 million or 70 million, because we were asked to round to the nearest 10 million. The number which is halfway is 65 million. Because halfway between 60 and 70 is 65. This number, 67,505,932, is bigger than 65 million. So it's more than halfway. So it's closer to 70 million than 60 million. Number 11. The same number, but this time rounded to the nearest million. So it's the millions column which will either stay the same or change. And we look at the column next to that to see if we round up or down. And the number in the column next to it is a 5, which is halfway or more. So remember, if it's 5 or more in the column next to it, we round this up. So this will become 68 million. All of the digits to the right of the column we are rounding, in this case the millions, will become 0 because they're least significant and we don't need to know about them. All of the numbers to the left of the column we're rounding we need to keep because they are bigger numbers and they are more significant. Again, if you want to see that on a number line, our range would be 67 million to 68 million. We're either rounding to 67 million or 68 million. Halfway will be 67 million 500,000. And this number is slightly more. Because they've both got 67 million, they've both got 500,000, but this has 5,932 and this has nothing. So this number is larger than halfway, so it will round up to 68 million. Number 12. We're going to round the same number, but this time to the nearest 10,000. So we've got ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands. This is the tens of thousands column. And we need to decide whether that's going to round up or down. We look at the column next to it, which is a 5. Therefore we round up, and the answer becomes 67,510,000. Everything to the right of the 10,000s column becomes 0 because it's insignificant. Everything to the left of the 10,000s column is kept because it is significant. Now a very tricky question to finish. Don't worry if you didn't get this. This one was designed to make you really think at greater depth and challenge you. And whether you got the right answer or not doesn't matter. If you thought about it and you challenged yourself to try to find the answer, then you would have developed your thinking skills. But this is the answer. A number is rounded to 32 million. What is the largest number it could have been? So it's rounded to 32 million. So I'm going to write 32 million over here. I'm going to write 33 million over here. So a number was rounded to 32 million. What's the largest number it could have been before it had to round to 33 million is what you're really being asked. The number halfway is 32,500,000. If the number we were rounding was 32,500,000, it would have to have rounded up to 33 million. So in order to round down to 32 million, our number would have to be less than this. In fact, 1 less than this. So 32,500,000 take away 1 is actually 32,499,999. We're going to be doing a few lessons on adding and subtracting coming up, but just to point out here, the way you can check this is if we added 1 to this number, then this column would have 10 and we'd carry on over, then that would have 10, carry over, then that would have 10, we'd have to carry over, then that would have 10, we'd have to carry over, that would have 10, we'd have to carry over, and it ends up being put onto this column as a 5 with all the rest as zeros. 32,499,999 is the largest number you could have where it still rounds down to 32 million. That is the largest whole number you could have. If it was 1 more than that, it would be 32,500,000 and we'd have to round up. If it was 1 less than that, it would be 32,499,998, which would also round down to this, but this number is not as big as this. So this number is the largest whole number you can have, which will take you down to 32 million when you rounded it. Well done for learning how to round numbers today. Now you know how to read and write numbers, compare numbers, and round them. So next time we're going to be moving on to calculation, starting with adding, and then we're going to look at subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. Look at all the calculation strategies so you get really good and really fluent at calculating with number. So I look forward to seeing you next time.